gracious me. So, what a great result for us. Take a look at that, dear. Absolutely dominant throughout. And more importantly, aside from the margin of the victory, it's 3 more points, isn't it? They are 3 clear of Liverpool, who are in action on Wednesday against Everton. Manchester City, with 2 games in hand, still, of course, have destiny in their own hands. They take on Brighton away on Thursday. For more on this game, let's welcome in, shall we? Stewart Robson joins us. We'll be hearing from Robbo in a moment.
Where are we starting with this?
I don't want to start with Chelsea. I want to start with Arsenal because, let's be honest, after that defeat against Villa and the exit from the Champions League against Bayern Munich, where they were really poor, you kind of thought, wow, this could be their season once again, just fading away.
But domestically, they've been pretty good up until the
Villa game.
Until the
Shaka
Villa
was
game.
There, so maybe that was the reason. The obviously got the win against Wolves. And then to do this and make it look so easy. I know against an inferior opposition, but still.
Yeah, Wolves wasn't a sparkling performance, but they didn't need a sparkling performance. You mentioned that Villa and Bayern Munich had to be put to bed. Those performances, those results had to be put to bed, and quickly. And it was, and they were. And that's all they needed at Molineux. And it was tight. I mean, up until the late goal in injury time, they could have easily dropped some points, not because they weren't dominating the game, because they didn't kill Wolves off. In all fairness, today, after they take the early lead through the great goal from Trossard, a bit of a mistake from the goalkeeper at the near post, who ultimately actually played well for a lot of the game, although he lost 5 goals. They had a couple of chances, half chances in the first half, and it wasn't, for long periods, the first half for Chelsea wasn't a disaster. The rest of it just was. I mean, the way they fell apart. He decided that he was going to change his 2 centre-halves, Chalobah and
I thought we were talking about Arsenal.
Oh, yeah. I was swinging the ship around.
It's hard not to talk about Chelsea.
It's hard not to sort of talk about one without talking. But, OK, Arsenal, where have the problem positions been? At left-back, so it was Tommy Asu today. Odegaard's performance.
Sensational.
Terrific again. Kai Havertz, there is no doubt it's Jekyll and Hyde. Because in the first half, he's in the penalty area. His link-up play for the first goal was great. That saw Declan Rice go in and then Trossard. Then he gets put through after another mistake from Badiashile. He's very hesitant, plays a crappy ball to the left. You're thinking, oh my God, this is a Havertz. And then he scores 2 really good goals in the second half. So it's the Jekyll and Hyde, and there's no doubt about it. He is. You just don't know what you're going to get. And today, second half, he was much better. Rock solid. It wasn't Jorginho in the midfield, I've talked about that, but it was Thomas Partey. Yep. So it allowed Rice and Odegaard to go and express themselves a little bit more. And I think, and I've always said that Arsenal are a much better side when they have that facet to the team, where Rice worries about defensive duties but doesn't have to worry about it as much as when he's got 2 attacking players in there, and then we see the best of him. So they can do no more. This was a first-class performance, particularly for 45 minutes to an hour, and they've absolutely wiped the floor with this Chelsea side.
And they came out with such energy. Obviously, Havertz could have had that penalty really early on. Trossard opens the score in early, and then the second half performance, fantastic. They look like they're up for this.
They did. And to be fair, I thought Arsenal were quite clearly by far the better team. Started well, started really brightly. A little bit of a mistake, as I mentioned in the highlight from Petrovic for the goal, but take nothing away from Arsenal and their performance. And while I talk about the mistake from Petrovic, he was incredible for the rest of the first half. It quite easily could have been 3 or 4. Arsenal were just that much better than Chelsea. But while I sing their praises, it's hard to get away from Chelsea's performance. I know you're trying, Dan. You're trying.
I'm just going to go to Robert. Can I go to Robert?
All right, go to Robert. And then we come and then we'll deal with that. All right, okay.
But it's difficult.
Right. I know. Robbo, please just help me out. Just for Arsenal here, you were very critical of them, saying they're a very emotional side. When things are going great, they're great. And when I think it was after the Villa game, you were like, when they go down, it's difficult for them to lift themselves back up. They've completely lifted themselves back up, haven't they, after that Champions League disappointment?
Absolutely. The result against Wolves was the massive one. And then they scored early on today, so it settled all the nerves, and they played the sort of football that we've seen them play on numerous occasions this season. That's why they're the leading goal scorers in the Premier League. The combination play, the passing of Odegaard, the driving runs, which Craig was talking about from Declan Rice, breaking forward for the first goal, the wide players. I mean, Shaka didn't have his best game, and Cucurella did quite well against him at times. But the combination to keep getting Ben White in down the right-hand side is brilliant from Arsenal. And I think every one of their players knew exactly what their roles were. They knew exactly where the next pass was. They were clever around the box, the intricate passing, the combination play. That's what you expect from Arsenal at their very best. I thought they were brilliant tonight.
And you know, when Arsenal were able to suck Chelsea in like the first goal and then switch the play, in all fairness to Havertz, he drops into that number 10 role, and not one of the two centre-backs he didn't even bother coming out with him. So he was able to come out and he was able to turn and get it into Declan Rice. And Leandro Trossard held his ground really well. And he's been a key for them. You know what we've talked about him. I think it's 15 goals now. When we talk about players that are maybe on the fringe of a team, then he would come into that reckoning, right? Because even though Saka's been up and down at times this season, lost a little bit of form, then it was coming back again, he's pretty much in the side. You don't really see him being rested or dropped. Whereas Martinelli, whenever he loses a little bit of form or end product, he's generally out or he's taken off, and Trossard comes in. And that's when you need somebody to make the difference. It's not just a body. It's not just somebody coming in to play on the left-hand side. It's somebody that gives you something in the final third, whether it be a pass, a run, or a goal. And when you see his stats, 15 goals and then the assists and all the stuff he's done, it just tells you what an astute signing he was from Brighton when they made it. He has made a big difference. And a side, really, that you could still argue whether they win the league or not this year, and that's a big if, you could still argue this side needs somebody to put the ball in the back of the net. So they've shared it around thus far quite well.
Right then, shall we move on to the other team that featured in this game? Such was the performance from Chelsea, we asked Craig to give us his player ratings, and he did. Here they are then, in all their glory. Normally, these requests are responded by get stuffed or get someone else to do it.
Well, the producer did ask me, and I was sat having a cup of tea, and I was losing the will to live during the game. So I did say, I gave Petrovic, and I can't see these graphics, so I'll help me out here. I gave Petrovic 4 because he made a mistake, but he made some really good saves.
Yes.
I'm not going to pick on a youngster and young Gilchrist. That's better, Tommy. Thanks very much. I'm not going to pick on the youngster. Disa C3, Cucurella 3, because their experience. Badia Shield. Oh my God, with and without the ball, he was terrible. You know, 200 million in the midfield. Again, Caicedo useless. Gallagher runs about. Madueke, he tries to get at people. Mihailo Mudryk, oh my God, and once again, he might as well not have been there. And then, the big star up front. 9 disciplinary problems, 9 or 10 yellow cards, should have been a red card, didn't even get a yellow, topped Tomiyasu, straight over the ball, got away with that. He was at Wembley at the weekend. He wouldn't have been able to find where the goal was if the pyrotechnics were going up behind it. And then he goes to Arsenal, he gets one of the best balls of the season played into him, and he puts his hand up instead of heading it in, and he just... This guy, Nico Jackson, I've never known a player who is almost frightened when he gets in front of goal.
This is the life of Nico Jackson over the last...
Yeah, look at that. How's that not a red, right?
Oh,
this guy makes Kai Havertz look prolific.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
He's had an absolute beast at the weekend. He's had a beast most of the season. Yes, he'll run the... He got one for having the ability to run around. Now look at this. Watch. He got a 1 for the ability to run around and put a little bit of effort in. Oh my God. I mean, I'm sorry. And this is not a one-off. This is the whole period generally. I mean, remember he scored all those goals against Tottenham? They were down to 9 men.
Yes.
And he went, oh, this is great, tapping it in from 5 yards. As I said, he's making Kai Havertz look like an out-and-out goal scorer. That's how bad he is. And it's not his fault Chelsea lost the game. They were horrendous all over. They got problems all over the park. I go back to it. He's decided today that... Obviously, he's decided Thiago Silva can't play after he played.
So he made 3 changes to the back 4 that lost against City.
Gusto's injured, right? So Malo Gusto's injured. So Gilchrist comes in, the youngster. That's fine. The two centre-halves have been Trevor Chalobah and... Thiago Silva. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Chelsea weren't that bad at the back against City at the weekend. It wasn't a great game. They weren't that bad. And Chalobah can still run about. And by the looks of these two, Badiashile and DCC, I think unless Thiago Silva had walked in with a Zimmer frame, I might have been convinced. I might have convinced that I would have given him. I said to him, "Can you play another game for me against Arsenal 3 or 4 days after you played at Wembley? Because the other two are utterly hopeless." I think I might have had that conversation, but he decided to change the two centre backs, and they were terrible. I mean, Badiashile. Oh my God! I mean, it's horrendous. Where did it go? Roman Abramovich gets out because of, I'm not getting into the political landscape. They sell the club. This lot come in, all talk, we're in the big underpants, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do the next thing, blah, blah, blah. Spent an absolute fortune, and Pochettino at the moment is looking like a dreadful manager. Yeah. Yeah. And he's not, we're not missing him with any criticism, because he could be out of job, who the hell knows. But where are they going to go?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Are they giving all these players
6-7 year contract?
6-7 year contract? Oh, we'll circumvent all these financial problems that we need to get around. We'll give these guys long contracts. I mean, as appalling as... No, I'm not even going to mention them. All right, well, I'm not going to... I thought I was going to shoehorn another team.
You're going to put Ten Hag in there? Wow, look at that.
Well, I'm not going to even mention their name, but there's two teams that have spent a fortune and they're appalling.
Yes.
And we watched one of them today.
Robbo, how much blame should Pochettino shoulder for these sort of performances?
The one area that I just don't understand, I've seen it all season, and we're talking about the centre-halves again, and I'm not going to talk about them defensively because they were poor defensively, but Arsenal today dropped that little bit deeper, dropped to about midway in there in Chelsea's half, and said, your two centre-halves can have the ball. Where are you going to go with it? Disassi and Badiashile kept on passing it backwards and forwards to each other, and they never, ever looked forward, as if they couldn't see a pass forward, whether the movement wasn't good or wasn't right there. But that's where the manager, when you do your patterns of play, you know usually where your next spot, how are we going to get from back to front? Well, the two centre-halves had no idea how they were going to get it into midfield. They had no idea how they were going to pass it beyond that. Badiashile had lots of time on the ball, and then he'd pass it to Cucurella, who had nowhere to go with it because Shaka was pressing him, and that's where they lost possession on 2 or 3 occasions, and the ball was played straight to Havertz, who was in on goal. Disassi did exactly the same, and Arsenal did it really well. Every time they tried to play into midfield, they nicked the ball and then counter-attacked. And it looked as though the two centre-halves had no confidence on the ball. They didn't know where the next pass was. I'm not sure what they were trying to do. And that's just with them on the ball. The defensive side of the game was terrible. So Pochettino has to take some responsibility for a lot of what went wrong, but so do the players, that's for sure.
57 goals.
It's the most ever. Most ever in a Premier League season
6 to
for
go.
Chelsea, and 6 to go.
Thanks to statistician in London, Johnny Blaine. I'm not going to nick that.
All right.
I don't steal things.
OK, thanks, Johnny. Is Johnny watching?
Well, he might be. Somebody might post this to him. 6 games to go. I mean, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, I'm not, and honestly, people say to me, this is typical, isn't it? Graham Potter was in there. I'm not suggesting he's Guardiola or Klopp before one of these morons start, right? However, this is typical of, this job's too big for him. He's English. He's never played really at any level. He was manager in Scandinavia. This is Chelsea. Superstars, it can't. Could you categorically say it would be as bad as this? Because it wasn't as bad as this last year. So, all this sort of nonsense with fans who go and say, this club's too big for him. This club's not too big for anybody, by the way. This is worse than when this club hardly had a couple of halfpennies to rub together. And I was there. And we were not a good side. But we weren't spending billions. We weren't paying people 200, 300, 400,000 a week and giving them 8-year deals. They were scratching around. It's as bad as that, if not worse.
Let me say, I think this is as bad a performance as I've seen from a top-level team. And I sat here yesterday and was very scathing around Manchester United and Erik ten Hag, and I think this performance from Chelsea was decidedly worse for a number of reasons. Okay, you give up the early goal and Arsenal have the momentum. Arsenal are a very good team. Take nothing away from them. But then through whether you want to say bad finishing or good goalkeeping in Petrovic. You get to the break, it's still 1-0. Second half starts, and I felt at that point the Arsenal crowd started to get a little bit edgy. I witnessed it a couple of weeks ago firsthand. Just you want that goal to kill the game off because of everything and because of how the season unfolded last year, and you want that goal just to make sure.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the moment that Chelsea could have done something, could have forced Arsenal into a mistake or two. But, and Craig mentioned it earlier, Arsenal concede a corner, Chelsea send nobody out. When they take the corner, short corner, one player goes out. Now, that's basics. You don't need a set-piece coach to know that you cannot send one player out to a short corner. And while, again, yesterday I questioned Manchester United about the lack of leadership, the lack of just basic understanding of the game, this is, again, decidedly worse. From a team that, as expensively built as it has been, we could look at individual mistakes, and Robbo and Craig has done a really good job of pointing out where tactically things went wrong for Chelsea. Nobody should be making that kind of mistake. I don't care who you are, where you're playing. If you're a professional, you have to know that, and you have to recognize that. And Chelsea didn't. And from there, the game's done. Now, Arsenal could score the second, and let's be honest, it could have been 8 by the end. And for me, that is beyond excuse. And while Pochettino, I think that's an on-the-field decision, this Chelsea team hasn't improved in any facet all season long. And you have to start questioning Pochettino as a result. Because while we criticize the players individually, I think Pochettino hasn't done anything to cover himself in a whole lot of glory.
And if he doesn't feel, and I don't know the answer to this, if he doesn't feel with all these people they've brought in, and by the way, thus far, Roman Abramovich and whoever was in control of the club and finance at the time really couldn't have sold it to a bunch of worse people for running the club. It would be hard to think about a group of investors, billionaires coming in that could make a bigger pig's ear than they currently are. It would be harder to figure it out. So that's the starters. But if he doesn't feel with all these people they've brought in, who I've no doubt are having a contest to see who's the big cheese, to who can make themselves look good with the spending and the recruitment and all that sort of... If he doesn't feel he's got any influence over them, he needs to have the guts, I think, to walk away. Right? And I'm not even going to say walk away while his stock's high, because it's not. But just walk away. If he thinks it's going to be a continuous of the shambles, and I know they've been to a cup final, I understand that, but if he feels that, and it's not about the money, he needs to walk away and say, do you know what, let somebody else get involved in this. But he probably won't. But
then to that point, that's his last 2 jobs now. He's taken a little bit of his reputation has taken a little bit of a hit, Pochettino. So I'm with Craig in that you can't. If this ship is sinking, you got to bail.
But then who comes out and captains that ship, Robbo? Who wants that job? And what would you do if you had that job to fix this?
Well, the trouble is with the players they've got at the moment, and Pochettino must send out his team. And as a coach, you send out your team, and you've got some good players in your side, but you also want solid players you can depend on. When things aren't quite going well, they're going to be a 7 out of 10. They might not be expansive on their day; they might be really good players. But when they're not having a good day and the team's not having a good day, you want players that are going to be solid. They're going to put in decent performances. Pochettino puts out a team now, and which of those players that he had out on the field today could you say was going to give you a solid performance week in, week out? I'm not sure there's too many in that side. And Craig mentioned Mudryk. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. Jackson, you don't know what you're going to get with him. And they're relying on Jackson at the moment to be their outball, to make the runs in behind. He's the only real threat. Madueke, do you really trust him week in, week out? Conor Gallagher, he's been okay this season, but do you trust him? He hasn't been happy with the 2 left-backs. Chilwell has been in and out the side. A player that everyone thought was a great player at one point. So there's a lot of players there that aren't what I would call solid players, and you depend on those players to be a good team. So whoever comes in has got a massive problem. He's got they're a young side. They're the youngest side in the Premier League, was the stat today. well, they're going to have to somehow improve very, very quickly if any manager goes in there and makes them a decent side.
But you know, if you're a front man and you're not a natural goal scorer, right? Which, by the way, there's a lot of them around. Some people are penalty box players, strikers, and some are a bit of everything, and some are not. Nico Jackson, it's crystal clear that he's not a natural finisher. Absolutely crystal clear. But there's no real other facets to his game that are, you know, advantageous as well. You know, he's quick. But, you know, when you're not a really good finisher, then there has to be, when you're looking at players to sign them for a club, you say, right, OK, he's not going to get his 30 goals a year. Maybe he'll get his 10 to 15, whatever it is, and he's a striker. So there has to be other parts of his game that he's going to bring to this team. So that's like a Harry Kane or whoever it is who drops off and pings balls. Or even, in all fairness to him, and I'm not his biggest fan, Kai Havertz, he'll at least attempt to link play up. And sometimes he will, and he'll hold it up in his chest and he'll bring players in or he'll take it for a run. To me, Nico Jackson is limited in every facet, apart from being quick to get in behind. And yet somebody has looked at him when he was playing at Villarreal, when he was playing in Spain, and gone, you know, this guy can sort of lead the line for us. And really, he's not a link-up player. He's not going to pass the ball, you know, drop off and play great balls over the box. And when the ball does come in the box, it looks as if he's frightened of it. And so that's recruitment.
Yeah.
That's just bad recruitment.
Meanwhile, then, let's focus on Arsenal and this remaining fixtures that they have. Obviously, it's 4 games to go now until the end of the season for Arsenal. They are leading. We've talked about the pressures of that, although they showed no sign of those pressures today. Manchester City, as I mentioned, are still the favourites because if they win their remaining 6 matches, that's it. They are champions. Arsenal have left, oh yes, the North London derby away. Bournemouth, United, Everton. You'd imagine those 3 are fine, really. It's all about Spurs. Is it all about Spurs, Robbo?
Yes, I think so. They'll be too good for Bournemouth. They'll be too good for Manchester United. They'll be too good for Everton. And they're a much better team than Tottenham. But you always know with local derbies, anything could happen. The atmosphere, it could be a sending off somewhere along the line. Tottenham players winding up the Arsenal players. We've seen Arsenal players react to it on occasions. It's a massive occasion. It'll be quite a volatile atmosphere. It's as long as Arsenal keep their cool and play their game and earn the right to play as they did today, I can't see them dropping any points from now to the end of the season.
Yeah? Do you agree, Jack?
Yeah, I do. I think that's the toughest test. Listen, Man U can frustrate, and we've seen them frustrate teams, big teams, during the course of this season, but I think you bank on any kind of consistency from Manchester United at your peril. Once Arsenal deal with that pressure, that same pressure I was talking about when it was 1-0, that as the game goes on, and you need the security of that second goal, once they're able to deal with that, I think Arsenal make certainly easy work of the remaining 3. That North London derby is a huge one because all of a sudden, I think that's where Spurs' season hinges. As good as it's been, that's the cherry that I think all Spurs fans are looking for.
You going to that one too?
I bet he's banned.
Oh, you're banned.
Arsenal want him nowhere near any more matches that are involved in
you're throwing pens now.
That's it. What do you think, by the way, for Arsenal's chances?
Well, excellent.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on what City do as well.
Yes.
But, you know, they've got less games now than the rest, and you look at those fixtures, it's going to come down to what I fancy the chances.
Yeah.
I'm just not... Liverpool, I know Stevie's talked about it, they're just looking as if they've just... I mean, they got the result at Fulham in the end at the weekend, but there's something, I think, that is stronger about this Arsenal side.
I think out of the 2, you would fancy Arsenal to win their remaining games more than Liverpool at the moment, given what we've seen.
Yeah.
Liverpool, of course, are in action on Wednesday and will be reflecting on their tie against Everton.